Hello, welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar for this month. I'm Dale Franks, and we have a fair amount to talk about today, although I think I should be able to get through it fairly quickly because most of these are not huge topics. There are just several things that are going on that we need to talk about. An update to something I talked about last month, which is Google OAuth. It's now available in the BP email import. We'll take a look at that briefly. We've made some changes to the goal system variable that you're going to want to be aware of for 6.1.300. We'll talk about that. Drag and drop for custom tasks. I don't think I can demo that to you, unfortunately, but I do have a screenshot of it that we'll be able to look at so we can see how it works. And it is already in the doc. We'll talk about that. There's several other smaller enhancements that we'll cover. And then, of course, as always, we'll look at some bug fixes the engineering team has tackled as we get ready to move towards 6.1.300. We are adding Google OAuth to Process Director as an authentication method. We actually have a customer who does everything in Google, which is fairly unusual because I know that most customers are using Azure and Active Directory and Exchange for email, but we do have at least one customer who does everything via Google. And so therefore, in addition to covering Microsoft's OAuth, we also have to cover the Google flavor of OAuth as well. We've added it to the product, which I believe I showed you last time. Actually, I'm not sure I actually was able to show it to you last time, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show it to you this time. I just got the most recent update a few minutes ago to the latest dev build. I don't know because I just didn't have time to look to see if Google OAuth was added there, but I do have a copy of BP email import, so I can show you that instead of a screenshot, but I may not be able to show you the actual UI. We'll take a look at it here in a second in terms of how it looks in installation settings. But in BP email import, what we've done is at the very top of the OAuth tab, which is the new tab that we added to email import whenever we began supporting Microsoft Modern Authentication, which is their flavor of OAuth. At the very top, we've added a new field. It's the OAuth type field. And now you have a choice between Microsoft and Google. Now, when you check Google, there's not much of a difference, except for the fact that the tenant field now becomes disabled. The tenant is for the Active Directory tenant that you have to set up in Azure. That does not apply to Google, of course. And so therefore that field does not require you to fill it out. And indeed it's disabled. So you can't fill it out even if you wanted to, but the client ID and client secret are still there because those are the two common OAuth fields that both Microsoft and Google share. So you'll have to supply your Google client ID and the client secret from Google, just as you did with Microsoft supplying it from Azure. Both of these values should be available in your Google Developers Console so that you can grab them, copy them, and paste them in here. That means that you can now, with the upcoming version of the product and the upcoming version of this utility, be able to access and monitor Gmail inboxes, essentially, so that you can pull in emails and do all of the normal email processing that you can in Process Director with a regular SMTP account, with an Office 365 account on Azure using Microsoft Modern Authentication. Now you'll be able to do that with Google as well. So Google OAuth will be placed into the product. Now, do we have it in the product? By the way, while we're here, this is something I talked about last time, and we didn't really get a chance to see much of it work, but this is the actual working version of the live stats page inside Process Director. It's in the troubleshooting section of IT Admin for 6.1.300. And as you can see, it's continuously scrolling. as it actually makes these little health checks. And we're going to have to pause this because everything will scroll out of view if I don't. What it's doing is it's telling you how long things are taking to occur whenever it does that particular health check. Now, this just happens to be the health check page. There's a couple of other pages that it checks, like clientsubs.js, health check. I know there's one more. Here we go. The Signal R, which is your general error checking page and error messaging page. And there's one or two others that it checks. And what it's telling you is how long it's taking for things to happen. So like your pre-initialization for the health check page is taking this many seconds to process. It is a little bit confusing because if it goes any faster than this, and at this point we are now down to 15 ten thousandths of a second. If it goes any faster, it actually drops into exponential notation. So it's 3.5 times 10 to the minus sixth power. So there would be another 6 zeros after the decimal point here. So these are actually actually before the decimal point. So the decimal point would actually move to the right by 6 digits. So it would be 0.3.5 seconds to take place. So that's that, and that's just what we're gonna to look at there. Now, does it have the Google stuff in here yet? It does. So couple of different things. I'm looking at the run email test page, and as you can see, if we use specific SMTP server, the dropdown now lists both Office 365, which is what it has been doing for a couple of months now, and now it lists Google OAuth as well. Now, as you make the change to Google OAuth, it's going to give us our client ID, and well, okay. Google OAuth is weird, and I don't know why they do it the way that they do it. But you have to have your client ID, and then they provide you with this JSON package that you just have to paste in here inside Process Director. It is true here on the Run Email Tests page. If we go to installation settings and we scroll down here to our SMTP authentication type, same thing happens. It's going to regen, and we're going to have our SMTP JSON there as well. And it's just a snippet of JSON. It may be a fairly extensive snippet of JSON that you just have to copy and paste into here. So as long as you have that in the product, you have your connection to Google. That SMTP JSON contains a number of the OAuth tokens for you, I believe, so that you can just paste it in there. But anyway, that's how it works, and we've now added that into BP email import, which clearly I have already closed, but we've already seen it, so we see how that works. So that's the Google OAuth piece, and that'll be coming in 6.1.300. Now, let's talk about the goal system variable. Now, there is currently a goal system variable. It's shown with this syntax right up here at the very top. Goal name, and then you have previous value equals 1, yes, or true. And what this enables you to do with a goal is to, if you don't use the previous value modifier, what it did is it just returned with goal and goal name, it just returned whatever the current goal value was. We've now expanded on what it returns, but we have changed the way it works. We've deprecated the previous value. I say deprecated. Probably a lot of people are using it. So it's not something that we can just remove from the product because it would require that customers go back in and make a lot of changes. So we're not going to do that, but we have deprecated it. And we have changed this modifier to a single formatter, format equals, and we've added 3 formatters to that particular formatter. One, of course, already exists. This one called prev value now. So the new syntax is goal colon goal name comma format equals, and then you have the choice between last eval, which is the previous value. No, I'm sorry. The last eval was the previous, or the last time the goal was evaluated. Next eval is the date and time that the goal is next scheduled for evaluation. And then prev value is now what the old previous value modifier was, where you would have to type in previous value equals 1 or yes or true. Any of those three would work. Now it's just format equals prev value, and it just pulls that previous value. So this is the new syntax for the goal system variable. We're returning 2 extra bits of data. This data already exists, so there was no reason not to return it. If you go to the goal definition and you look at the history, all 3 of these values are listed there in the history section of the goal definition. So we're just returning them now via the system variable. To do so, rather than adding some extra modifiers the way that we had previous value added, we've now switched over to the formatter, and you can just pull whatever value that you want. It standardizes the way that the system variable works. It standardizes the syntax that you use. Now, as I said, the old syntax has been deprecated, but not removed. It still works. Not only does it work, but it takes priority. If you were to type in goal colon goal name format equals next eval, and then you put comma previous underscore value equals 1, what this goal would return is the previous value. Because if you use this modifier, it will override any of the formatters you put in. It'll take precedence, and it will simply return the previous value. It will not return the date and time of the next evaluation if you include it. So don't use it anymore, first of all, because it is deprecated. Use the formatter. But just know that if you do use it in conjunction with the formatter, it will take priority. It will take precedence, and it will return this modifier value. It will not return whatever formatter that you have placed on it. That's largely the way modifiers work anyway, and so that's the way it's going to work going forward. But going forward, you just simply wouldn't use this modifier. You would simply use the formatter and put in one of the 3 values that you want. If you don't put in a formatter at all, then the goal will simply return whatever the current value of the goal name is. Whatever your goal is named, it'll just return the current value of that. So you'd only use the formatter if you wanted to return something other than the current value of the goal. So in that sense, the goal system variable remains unchanged. If you type in goal colon my goal, then it's going to return whatever the current value is of my goal. So that's a change to the goal system variable. Obviously, it's not something that I can really demonstrate much, but we can see the syntax. The syntax is there, and also the documentation has been updated to reflect this change that is coming, again, in 6.1.300. I would love to be able to demonstrate the CT drag and drop for you, and I can't. About 5 minutes before the webinar started, I got the most recent, the latest and greatest version build that we have of the product. And unfortunately, it's not in here. But what is going to happen in your custom task, and let me go back here and find this documentation form, and we'll take a look at it in a screenshot in the documentation. But you're used to seeing these 3 buttons, the up and down arrows, and then the X button. Now, these are not going away. They will remain in the product, and they will all still work, but there is going to be an extra icon right here beside the X button, and it is a drag and drop icon. And what it will enable you to do is click and hold the right mouse button when you're pointing at that icon. And literally, well, it doesn't work now. It just highlights things, but In a version where the drag and drop works, which apparently is not in this version, you'll simply be able to reorder all of your custom tasks by simply dragging and dropping them. People have complained for a while that this is inconvenient, especially if I have 20 or 30 custom tasks running on a form, which some of you do, and you decide that you need to reorder them. It does become a bit of a pain having to go clicky, click, 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 and click the down button 10 times on different rows to move the same custom task down a row, down a row, down a row. So that's all gone now, or at least it will be in 6.1.300. Now, I have a picture of it that was taken from the system of the developer who created it. And it's not showing here. And I know that so let me go back. I'm pretty sure I linked it to the right drag and drop ability, custom task, mapping an event to a custom task. There it is. This is what it will look like in the new version, this screenshot here. There'll be this, I don't know what this is. It's 6 dots. It's like dice, a 6 dice that has been squashed vertically. But that's the drag and drop icon, and you'll just be able to place your mouse on that, click and hold the right mouse button, or I'm sorry, the left mouse button, and you'll just be able to drag it anywhere that you want in the list. That's going to make reordering custom tasks, when you have to do that, much easier and much simpler and take up far less time. One of the things that we're concentrating on is how to make the common things that you do in the product easier. The first iteration of that was changing the online form designer to create the design console over on the right-hand side, where all of your properties, including your field properties, were available to you while you're designing the form. You don't have to close and save the form. Go to the Form Controls tab, change the field properties, go back to the form designer. Now it's all done in one spot. And one of our overriding goals with the product UI is to find all of these things that you do on a common basis and just make them easier to use, make them more convenient. So this drag and drop functionality is a big part of that endeavor in changing how how you would go about ordering many custom tasks on a form. Now, currently, it's only been implemented for custom tasks and only in the custom task event mapping tab of form definitions. Obviously, we realize that there are many other applications for this. And so as time goes by, this CT drag and drop is going to expand to other areas, not only of the form, but probably of knowledge views as well, because you have the same reordering features in many places on many different forms. You've got the conditions in the condition builder, where you might have 5 conditions, and the order in which those conditions appear might be important. So again, you have those up and down buttons. Columns tab of a knowledge view, you have those up and down buttons to reorder columns. So there are many places where this might be implemented, and we're looking at those places to move it beyond just the custom task event mapping. We chose the custom task event mapping tab because that's one of the most common requests that we get for making reordering those easier. So that's where we started. But that is the beginning, not the end of this process of making reordering various items easier. Some other enhancements, most of which I can't actually show you. Number one, we've put in a built-in 404 page into the product. Now, we've never put that in before. We have enabled you to create a custom 404 page. And for those of you who don't know, the 404 error in HTML in your browser is that page can't be found. You've given me a URL, I can't find it. And so prior to now, we've just been allowing your browser's standard 404 to take over. That is turning into a problem that we don't like. We want to have a little bit more control over the user experience on a 404. And it is kind of weird because a 404 error is not something we would normally expect. Inside the product, we know all of the navigation works because it's all sort of programmatically driven. So if we click something inside the product, it's going to go to the thing we know that is supposed to be there. As more customers are now using their own URLs and exposing more of Process Director to the outside world for non-Process Director users, it's becoming more common that the URL that you might want to copy and paste into some external link on some external website might not work. Users get directed in, and then they go to, if you've put in the wrong URL, they get the standard 404 page. So we want to curate that experience a little bit better. And so we've put in our own 404 page. This does not in any way interfere with any custom 404 pages that you may have built and thrown into your custom folder in your Process Director installation. But we now have a built-in 404 page that is going to be a little better and a little more informational. The error and info messages on forms, we have updated their style so that they look like all of the other banner messages that we have, with that nicer light blue background and black text rather than that weird light yellow background with the red border and the red text. That looks a little outdated. So we've updated those error and info messages to match the messages that appear in the rest of the UI. If you don't have the mobile app component, you don't care, and you don't really understand what I'm about to talk about, but we can now support the ability to assign mobile tasks inside the BP Logix mobile application. Now, this is, I hasten to point out, a separately licensed component. A couple of you have it, I know. Most of you do not. So this separately licensed component, you've never been able to assign tasks via the mobile app. You can do that now. And so that's just part of the mobile app. It's sort of built in, and we've updated the product to enable that. And I know at least one customer is already using that in their system. We've implemented various security enhancements, which I am not going to talk about in detail because I am not going to give a public discussion of what security enhancement we've thought would be cool to throw into the product. So, trust me, there have been some. We're not going to tell you what they are, at least not in this, not in a video that's publicly posted on YouTube, but they exist. So we've been working on other security enhancements for the product. There's some improved error handling. Most of this is happening in the back end. And the reason is that we're trying to provide a little better error messaging in the log files. So there are some weird little errors that kind of slip through the cracks and are either not displayed in the log files or displayed in such a way that makes it difficult to understand what that error actually means or why it popped up. So we've added some improvement in messages and logging. And that, by the way, is another one of our initiatives for product improvement, is to make the log files more comprehensible, more understandable, and to catch important things that you need to know if you're trying to troubleshoot some sort of issue that has cropped up in Process Director. And finally, we've added a visual retrieval indicator for KViews. When you run a KView, there is the little kind of hard to see spinny that shows up, but it doesn't really indicate to you what is going on. So we've added a more clear visual retrieval indicator to let you know that the knowledge view is still working. It's still trying to find the records and is not yet ready to display them to us. So it'll be a little more obvious to end users what is going on whenever the KView is running and trying to return records. Some bug fixes we've dropped into the product. There was a weird error when you would import a timeline. You would see this weird system.web exception. Now that's an application level error, which means that it basically broke process director. Not sure. I'm sure there's a technical explanation that I don't fully understand as to why it was happening, but fortunately, the engineering team knows why it was happening, and it's not going to happen anymore. It's not going to throw that system.web exception whenever you import a process timeline. The wrapper tag properties. Most controls in Process Director, most form controls actually have a wrapper tag property. Now, most people don't use it because it does require some knowledge of HTML and what the proper HTML containers are. Usually a div tag, but it could also be a span tag. And you might want to style that a bit separately. It just gives you some extra HTML styling options if you know what you're doing. However, it didn't matter if you knew what you were doing or not, because the wrapper tag on some controls was simply not making it to the browser. And so whatever you put in the wrapper property just never got printed to the browser. So we tracked that down and fixed that so that the wrapper tag property is no longer ignored. Weird issue with SharePoint. Some of the SharePoint data sources were simply not connecting to SharePoint. We tracked down a bug there and fixed that so that SharePoint now works reliably. Speaking of data sources, some other data sources, as time changes, and we have a lot of data sources in the product. If you go to open a brand new data source object and you go to the data source type, that drop down shows up and there's like 50 different data sources in there. As time has gone by, various data sources have altered the method for making the connection to them, whether you're talking about Box.net or Google or any of the other ones that are in there. They kind of change things as time goes on. So we've gone through those various data source types and made fixes to them to update them so that all of those data sources that show up in the dropdown are supported. Some custom tasks had to be fixed as well. The jump to step custom task required a fix in that it was not, and this is a workflow custom task. So this is a bug in workflows. So I hasten to add, you shouldn't be using workflows. So this is not an error that should affect you because you should be using process timelines. However, if you were using workflows and you had a jump to step CT running, there was an issue that could prevent it from jumping to the designated step. We've gone in and fixed that. Now, for everyone, the item action CT is important, and the item action CT was not renaming objects properly. It was basically due to the reference. So let me give you an example. I have a form that I submit. Then my process timeline copies the form to a new form. And well, there's a couple of things that are going on. If I rename that new form, it's not getting renamed. If I drop in an attachment and I try to rename the attachment, it wasn't getting renamed either. Also, if it did get renamed, there would have to be some intervening event that occurs before the renaming occurred. Basically, there was a caching issue that was going on, and the old name was just getting cached for too long, and it wasn't renaming it in a timely fashion. But if you went back and ran it again, everything would work fine. So we had to figure out what that caching issue was and figure out that item actions. There was also another one that is also fixed that comes to mind, but now I don't remember the exact circumstance of it. But it was not item actions. It was actually set form data. And that's one that we're working on that is a real quick fix, but I did not include it on the list here. What's happening is if I have a form and I create a copy of that form, and then I try to set the data in a field, what it was doing is setting the data resetting the data in the original form. It wasn't setting the data in the new form that I created. It wasn't keeping up with the context of what the current form was. So I've got my original form, and I go into my timeline. I create a copy of that form. I use like copy form data. I create a copy of that form, and then my set form data runs, and I want to change data in the copy of the form. But it was grabbing onto and holding the original form. So rather than changing the data in the form copy, it's changing the data in the original form because of the way it was referenced. Now that's kind of an edge use case because we generally don't, copy a form completely and then just change the data in one field in a form. So it's kind of a strange use case, but it did catch this issue. Normally, you would never notice this. It would just never happen. It has to be this specific thing of copying a form. It's the same form. I now have an original and a copy. I do a set form data, and it's going to change the data in the original, not in the copy, because it doesn't grab on to that copy as being the current form. So if you don't do that specific thing, you don't see the error. However, that is going to be a change as well. Now, for the item action CT, it's going to be one of those rare cases where you're going to have to install both the product and the new CTs for that item action CT to work. So that's going to be a little confusing. We generally like to keep the CTs completely separate from the product. That's not always possible because as we add new things to the product and we create changes in the CTs to account for that, there are sometimes linkages. We haven't had to do that for a couple of years now, but unfortunately, I think this is going to be one where we are going to have to do that. A couple of other little errors. The content list was not displaying properly for non-admins when you just checked the content list box in a user's edit user page in IT admin. Simply wasn't showing them the content list the way it was supposed to. We fixed that. And a really rare issue is with SAML systems where you're doing this HTML thing to pass login data back and forth. We were passing the relay state parameter twice. And on some systems, they really, really don't like to have the relay state parameter passed to them twice. So we ran into a customer, a Japanese customer, who happened to see that issue. And that is an issue that we have fixed. All right, so that's all that I have prepared, but there is one question in Q&A, so let me talk about that. When do you anticipate all these bugs being released for general consumption and in which version? As I said a couple of times today, this is all 6.1.300. So, and I think as a general rule, you can accept that the stuff that I am talking about in any of the Feature Spotlight webinars are always going to be the next upcoming version. These changes can't be made retroactively to what you're running. Obviously, you're going to have to install a new version and upgrade. So these will all be 6.1.300. All of these updates. So then the question becomes, when are we going to release 6.1.300? And that is a question I can't answer. I do not know. If we have set a date, the engineering team tells us internally when they would like to produce a new version. But we haven't publicly stated a time frame, I don't think. And since that is true, I wouldn't be comfortable stating an actual time frame. All I can say is that Process Director 6.1.300 is coming soon, and I am aware that that is not a perfectly satisfactory answer, but unfortunately, it's the answer that I am obliged to publicly give you at this point in time. So I apologize not being able to completely answer that question. That's all the time that we have for today. Indeed, I've gone a couple of minutes over. I crave your indulgence for doing so. Hope you have a great week. For those of you who go to the training webinar, I will look forward to seeing you on Thursday as we go through and do an overview of all of the custom tasks in the product, assuming I can do that in 2 hours. It will be interesting, if nothing else, to see if I run out of time before I can finish that overview of all the custom tasks. So I'll look forward to seeing you on Thursday for that. For everybody else, have a great November. We'll talk to you next month. So long.